You were a Viking. The cold reached you before the dawn did. It settled into your hands as you stood barefoot on damp oak planks, watching the tide rise beneath a longship that had carried generations before you. Frost covered the shoreline. The village behind you was awake, but strangely quiet. No one spoke louder than a whisper. No one asked if this journey would end in celebration or silence. You already knew why. Some questions were never meant to be answered. Most people believe you became a Viking because you dreamed of glory. You didn't. You became a Viking because the world you were born into gave you almost no other choice. That is where the real story begins. Not with axes, not with raids, but with survival. Long before your name could inspire fear across distant shores, the land itself tested whether you deserved to live another winter. The growing season was painfully short. Fields produced only what the climate allowed. A single failed harvest could erase years of work, and one unforgiving winter could erase an entire family. Every morning was less about building a future than defending the present. The North demanded something modern societies rarely understand. Resilience wasn't admirable. It was mandatory. Most people imagine Vikings as fearless warriors who welcomed death without hesitation. The archaeological record tells a quieter story. You feared death just as deeply as anyone else. The difference was that fear could never become your master.
From childhood, you learned that storms ignored courage, hunger ignored kindness, and the sea rewarded only preparation. Every lesson your father taught you, every scar earned while working frozen ground, every winter survived, became another piece of an invisible education, one that transformed ordinary people into individuals capable of crossing oceans that much of Europe still feared. Your greatest enemy was never another kingdom. It was uncertainty. Researchers studying early Scandinavian settlements have noticed something remarkable. The communities that survived were rarely the strongest in the traditional sense. They were the ones that adapted fastest. They repaired instead of replacing. They shared when survival demanded cooperation. They learned every rhythm of the sea, every change in the wind, every sign hidden within the landscape. The world rewarded those who paid attention. And so did you. Most people think exploration begins with curiosity. For you, it began with necessity. The sea was not an invitation. It was an escape. Each voyage carried impossible risks, but remaining at home often carried even greater ones. As populations grew and resources became increasingly limited, the horizon slowly transformed from a terrifying boundary into the only direction where possibility still existed. The ocean became your road. Your ship became your home, and uncertainty became your companion. Your longship was more than an engineering marvel. Every plank bent with the waves instead of resisting them. Every curve reflected centuries of observation passed from one generation to the next. It was built by people who understood that nature could never be conquered, only negotiated with. That philosophy reached far beyond shipbuilding. It became the foundation of your life. Modern history often remembers you for the villages you attacked. It remembers far less about the worlds you connected. You traded with kingdoms thousands of miles away. You carried silver, amber, furs, glass, silk, stories, languages, beliefs, and ideas across rivers and seas that linked continents long before modern borders existed. Your journeys reshaped economies, cultures, and histories,
in ways few people recognize today. You were never simply a warrior. You were an explorer, a merchant, a navigator, a craftsman, sometimes all within the same lifetime. Scientists still debate exactly how sailors like you navigated beneath thick clouds and across vast oceans without modern instruments. Some evidence suggests remarkable knowledge of currents, migrating birds, ocean swells, and perhaps even translucent crystals capable of revealing the hidden position of the sun.
The exact methods remain uncertain. The achievement does not. You crossed distances that many believed impossible, not because you eliminated uncertainty, because you accepted it. That may be the greatest misunderstanding of all. Most people believe courage means feeling no fear. Your world taught something far more uncomfortable. Courage begins the moment fear is no longer allowed to choose your direction. Every decision carried consequences measured in lives rather than opinions. Honor was not simply a personal virtue. It was a form of social survival. Your reputation determined who would trade with you, fight beside you, protect your family, or remember your name after you were gone. Identity was never an individual possession. It belonged to the community. And the community depended on trust. From a modern perspective, many of your choices appear brutal. Some truly were. Yet history rarely allows simple judgments. The same person capable of violence could also spend months crafting a ship that would outlive him, composing poetry beneath the northern sky, raising children, negotiating peace, or traveling farther than almost anyone of his generation. Human beings have always been more complicated than the stories told about them. Perhaps that is the lesson history repeats most often. If you had been born into this world, your ambitions would not resemble those you hold today. You would measure wealth differently, success differently. Even happiness would take another form. A warm fire, enough food to survive another winter, loyal companions beside you, and favorable winds might have been worth more than comforts modern civilization now considers essential.
Environment shapes expectation. Expectation shapes identity. Identity shapes history. We often believe we create ourselves through choice, but history whispers another possibility. Perhaps we are first created by the worlds that create us. The Viking Age did not produce extraordinary people because they were fundamentally different from us. It produced extraordinary adaptations to extraordinary circumstances. Remove the frozen coastlines. Remove the endless winters. Remove the uncertainty, and perhaps there would have been no Vikings at all. Which raises a far more unsettling question. How much of who you are today truly belongs to you? And how much was quietly carved by a world you never chose?
Somewhere beneath modern cities, beneath electric light, beneath routines, technology, and comfort, the human mind still carries ancient instincts shaped by environments that disappeared centuries ago. The Viking is gone. The conditions that created him are gone. But the quiet truth remains. Change the world around a human being, and eventually you change the human being. Perhaps that has always been the real story, not of the Vikings, but of us.